Sylvia shared that if she could go back to her earlier self, she would tell herself that everything wasn't her fault and to show herself some grace. So the key takeaways from Sylvia's journey: you have the right to set boundaries. You don't have to engage with people who have hurt you. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You own your narrative. Give yourself grace. Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole: Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. If you're tired of feeling fragmented and overwhelmed, this podcast is your guide to creating a life of wholeness, authenticity, and healthy boundaries. I'm a woman in recovery who is also a boundaries coach and speaker. I share raw and honest insights from my own journey and the principles of 12-step recovery. Discover how to set boundaries without guilt or shame, overcome people-pleasing tendencies, manage your emotions effectively, cultivate a stronger sense of self, and build healthier relationships. My approach is raw, honest, and sometimes a lot sweary. I'm an avid beachcomber and a formerly closeted fan of the Hallmark Channel, especially Christmas movies. I wear fingerless gloves almost all year round because my hands are always cold, and I love taking pictures of license plates with my initials BN on them. I don't speak for or endorse any particular 12-step program of recovery. Though I'm a huge fan of 12-step recovery and a member of 2 such fellowships, I cannot speak for them. If you're ready for real talk and practical tools for transformation, keep listening. This is episode 308, How to Go Beyond Woe Is Me, Sylvia's Powerful Shift to Self-Ownership. All right, podcast listeners, buckle up because I am about to share a story that blew my mind. It's from a recent coaching session, and I've changed some details, including the name, to protect my client's privacy, but the core wisdom, pure gold. Let's call her Sylvia. So Sylvia and I were wrapping up a big phase of her journey, specifically around her path to retirement. In our previous session, she committed to writing a list of the big things she'd like to accomplish in her last couple of years on the job. She shared it with me in our private chat, and I asked her, Sylvia, does this feel complete? And she said, it feels like a very good start. I think it is complete because these are the big things I wanted to address. Now, here's where it gets interesting. She shared a couple of powerful stories that really illustrated her transformation. These had happened in the previous week. First, actually, before the previous week thing, she talked about a time back in 1984. She was in an interracial marriage, and in 1985, she was pregnant, and she became the target of a white supremacist group. They followed her, left threatening messages, a truly terrifying experience. Now, this was before stalking laws, so she felt completely vulnerable. After about 6 months of terror, they eventually got bored with her and moved on to someone else. Sylvia emphasized that this kind of hatred isn't some relic of the past. It's still very much a reality, and it's probably going to get worse in this day and age of all the things that are going on right now. She said, "You think I'm feisty now? You should have seen me then. I was not going to allow them to intimidate me, but I also wasn't stupid." All right, then she shared the more recent experience. She went to a going-away party for a former colleague, not knowing who else was going to be there. Turns out it was filled with people who had caused her significant trauma in a previous job, people who had essentially forced her out. Standing outside when she realized who was there, she had a choice. She said, do I cave and go back to the way things were, or do I use everything I've learned? She decided to give herself grace, to allow for imperfections, and to keep moving forward. And then she walked in, and here's the kicker. She decided that she was in control. She saw the people who had hurt her and decided they no longer have power over her. She chose who to speak to and who to ignore. She didn't engage with their negativity. She set boundaries. At one point, a former leader made a comment about their team being together, and Sylvia simply didn't engage. She knew they hadn't, quote, let her go, They had pushed her out, so she refused to play their game. I asked her, how did that feel? And she said, really great. One of her friends, whose wife had been through a similar ordeal, noticed the change in Sylvia. He was like, you have changed. And she explained that she'd dealt with her trauma, and with the help of boundaries coaching, she was doing much better. He asked if she'd be willing to talk to his wife to share what she'd learned. So it looks like I might be getting another new client. All right. She also had a counter with a former colleague at that party. This is someone who had abandoned her during a difficult time. This person tried to play the I always meant to reach out card, but Sylvia didn't give her an easy out. She held her accountable. Sylvia didn't care if she made these people uncomfortable. She left when she was ready, deleting the texts and ignoring their attempts to reach out to her after she left the party. They knew something was different about her. Now, I asked her, how would you have handled all of this before we did our coaching work together? And Sylvia said she would have cried, replayed the stories, and blamed herself. She would have hidden in a corner. But this time, she listened to fun stories, ate good food, and left. She slept soundly that night and didn't rehash the evening. One of the biggest changes, she didn't drink. Usually, this group was heavy on the alcohol, and one person always tried to push her. But Sylvia stood firm, asking for tea instead. She was also dealing with physical pain, and when people asked about it, she simply shut it down. She didn't owe them an explanation. She didn't feel like it was any of their business. And here's the real breakthrough. She realized she didn't have to engage with people who hadn't earned her attention. She didn't feel depleted. She felt energized. She had her own back. Sylvia recognized that she didn't need to say her piece to people who weren't going to listen. She realized they wanted her to diminish herself to make them feel better, and she refused to participate in it. She gave herself constant pep talks, reminding herself who she was and what she had accomplished. She did all of this while in pain without any prior planning. And as she reflected, she said, every time you have something, you learn. And my biggest mantra has been, it's not easy. This was a huge shift from her old mantra, it's just easier. And she meant it's just easier if I do things their way. She realized, you do not get to have the narrative of my life. I own the narrative too. She also recognized that sometimes being pleasant is about her own well-being and that she had permission to take care of herself. Sylvia shared that if she could go back to her earlier self, she would tell herself that everything wasn't her fault and to show herself some grace. So the key takeaways from Sylvia's journey, you have the right to set boundaries. You don't have to engage with people who have hurt you. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You own your narrative. Give yourself grace. And it's okay to prioritize your well-being. Sylvia's story is a powerful reminder that we all have the ability to change our narratives and reclaim our power. And that's something we can all learn from. So let's go back through those takeaways one by one. You have the right to set boundaries. Even if people try to make you feel like you're a bad person for setting boundaries, you get to set them. You get to live your life the way you want. You're living your life, not theirs. Next, you don't have to engage with people who have hurt you. Enough said. Except, of course, I'm going to say more. You don't owe anyone anything, especially not if they've hurt or harmed you in some way. Do what you need to do to protect yourself and keep yourself safe. It is not going to increase your moral fortitude to put yourself in harm's way. Next, you don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You can choose to explain things to people, certain people, if that's what you really want to do. But make sure you're doing it by choice, not because you feel compelled or obligated to do so. Having healthy boundaries is all about making conscious choices about how you want to live your life and then living it that way. Next, you own your narrative. Other people don't get to tell you who you are or were. You get to decide what's true and not true about you. And you don't have to convince them about your narrative. It's none of your business what others think of you. It's your business what you think of you. Learning that, by the way, was absolutely fucking mind-blowing to me. It took me quite some time to wrap my mind around that. Next, give yourself grace. Treat yourself like a beloved friend. Cut yourself some slack. Be kind and loving to yourself. Raking yourself over the coals and beating yourself just ends up in you being battered and bruised, and that is no way to go through life. So give yourself grace. And it's okay to prioritize your well-being. It's not only okay, it's mandatory. It's self-preservation. If you don't prioritize you, you'll get run over. It is not selfish to take care of yourself. You want to pour from the overflow, not from an empty cup. And you can't have any overflow if you don't fill your cup first. This is one of the most important lessons of my entire adult life. I get to do more things that fuel me and less things that drain me. So go F yourself. That is, go fuel yourself. Hey everybody, Barb here, and I've got something special for those of you ready to take that next step. You know I'm all about breaking free from old patterns, right? Well, I'm offering a limited time opportunity to experience my coaching firsthand. For just $600, you'll get 3 powerful 60-minute one-on-one coaching sessions with me via Zoom. Think of it as a deep dive into whatever's holding you back. Relationships, transitions, or just getting real with yourself. Plus, you'll walk away with a personalized action plan and video recordings of each session to revisit whenever you need a boost. Here's the kicker. If you love what we do in those 3 sessions and decide to join my 12-week program within 30 days, you'll get a full $600 discount. That's like getting these sessions for free. This isn't just about talk. It's about transformation. If you've been listening to the podcast and thinking, damn, I need that, this is your chance. But spots are limited, so don't wait. Head to higherpowercc.com/clarity to book your sessions now. Let's get real, let's get vulnerable, and let's get you moving forward. That's higherpowercc.com/clarity. If you like this podcast, and I'm guessing you did because you're still listening, you will also love my weekly newsletter, Friday Fragments, which has short essays similar to the podcast. You can check it out at fridayfragments.news. That's fridayfragments.news. If you haven't already subscribed to my podcast on your favorite podcast outlet, please do that. It helps carry the message to more people. I started this podcast because there was so much wisdom in recovery that just wasn't making its way out into the world. So I want as many people as possible to hear it. I'd also love it if you'd leave a 5-star rating or a review, which you can do on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find it so they can get the benefits that you've gotten from listening. If someone in particular came to mind when you listen to this episode, please share it with them. And my favorite place to hang out on social media is Instagram. I'm at Higher Power Coaching. Please DM me there. I'd love to hear what you got from this episode. I run private and group coaching programs on building healthy boundaries. Whether you need help with boundaries in your personal, professional, or romantic life, I can help. Head on over to barbchat.net where you can get on my calendar for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries consultation. I also do short-term situational coaching to help people make it through specific situations they're going through, such as divorce, empty nesting, preparing for retirement, or any phase where their identity is shifting. Regardless of the type of coaching, my ideal client is someone who is ripe for change. If that's you, I'd love to work with you. My goal with all my work is to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. Remember, it's never too late to recover. No one is beyond hope, and healing is possible. Thanks for listening.